Hello BookTube, it's Louise the Big Head Bookworm. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day wherever it is you are and whatever it is you're doing. Hello, hello, hello. So as always, I'm going to start talking about the terrible light that I am. So normally I record Friday Reads earlier in the day, sat in front of a window so that I can get as much natural light to bathe myself, because I think natural light is the best light. It's the most flattering, and it is, of course, natural. However, I am recording this at 5 o'clock in the evening, so there is no natural light outside. It would be very, very, very dark, very, very, very dark if I was to record outside. So I'm using various lights, including an overhead light, which is seriously not flattering. However, my laptop is struggling to cope with this light, and so the picture, when I look at myself, is not great. So I do apologise for that. So you're going to have to bear with me on this particular edition of Friday Reads. It's Friday Reads, it's Friday Reads, it's much later in the day, and so I'm feeling all discombobulated. It's Friday Reads. Yes, it's Friday Reads. Hello! Back again, the first one of 2019. Happy New Year! I think after today, which is the 4th of January, you can't really get away with that. I think it is kind of the 4th is a cut-off. I suppose if the husband goes back to work on Monday, and so he could go back and maybe say Happy New Year to some people, because he won't have seen them. But then it's a whole week into the year, so I don't know. When is that cut-off date? I'm sure it's this week. I'm sure today you could get away with a Happy New Year, but Monday starts to sound a bit odd. I don't know. What do you think? So today it was the husband's last day of holiday, so he goes back to work on Monday. Benedict went back to school yesterday, so yesterday we bumbled about, but today we decided to treat ourselves to go to the cinema. Yes, the two of us went to the cinema and saw a very adult film. Not adult as in, adult, although it was actually more adult than I had anticipated. We went to see The Favourite with Olivia Colman and Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz. Yes, so I really fancied seeing it, as did the husband. So we thought we're going to see that. So we went into the town of Cambridge, the city of Cambridge, and went to the picture house and sat there, all excited with our coffees, because we're going to the cinema during the day. It's just weird having anything else, so you end up having a coffee. And it was all very nice, and it was very involving, I would say, very immersive film. It was funnier than I thought it was going to be. I'd heard it was funny, and it was funny. I laughed out loud quite a few times, and it was comical, and comically done, but it was also grotesque in some ways, and I'm not a fan of grotesque. It really strongly reminded both the husband and I of Peter Greenaway's films, which Drowning by Numbers is one of... Is it Drowning by Numbers? I think it is Drowning by Numbers. It's one of my favouriteest films. So I do like it for that point of view. And it was really good, but I think it was too long. That's the only thing. That's my only criticism. Well, that's my only criticism that I'm going to do now, unless we're having a conversation, and I knew that you'd seen it. I would say I found it too long. I think it could have done with a good 20 to 25 minutes cutting of it. But it was very nice to go to the cinema, and then we kind of came out, and then we had to come home. So because Benedict would be coming home soon, so I'm late. I'm late with my Friday Reads, which is really kind of weird. So, but yes, and also other news of the week. It was a Brenda week. I know. It was a Brenda week. I went to see my physio. If you haven't heard me talk about Brenda the physio, go back a couple of Friday Reads, and I talk about Brenda the physio quite a lot. It was a Brenda week. I said to the husband, "It's a Brenda week." He's like, "God, how excited are you?" I was like, very excited about going to see Brenda. Slightly nervous because she'd given me exercises to do, and I wanted to please. So I wanted her to kind of notice how well I'd been doing the exercises. She did. Oh, yes. Yeah, she was very pleased with me. So pleased with me, she doesn't want to see me again. That was a blow. I was hoping that our relationship would last longer than this. But no, she's so pleased with me. I'm now going to see her colleague, Mick, on Tuesday. So next week's a Mick week. Who knows if he's going to be as tender and kind as Brenda? I'm hoping, otherwise that's going to be a bit of a shock to the system. So now she's very pleased with all the exercises I'm doing and thinks I'm doing well, and now thinks I need rehabilitation. Not really sure. She said, "We'll go to the gymnasium." I was thinking, why? We have moved a pace, Brenda, but it's all good. It's all good. Steady exercising she's got me doing. I could do more, to be honest, but she wants me to keep it steady, and that is my problem, you see. If somebody gives me exercises and they say do 10 of these, I do 10 times a day. I mean, I am always kind of over ambitious with this kind of thing. That is what I'm like. Anyway, you don't need to know that. So I'm seeing Mick. So I bid adieu, farewell. She did say, though, she did hand out that little carrot and said, "If you want to see me again, I'd be happy to." And I was thinking, I went, lovely. Thinking, are we talking for a coffee, or a meal, or just generally for me to come for a chat? Because I'm not thinking I'm actually going to need her for physiotherapy. Hopefully, in the future, I'm going to need Mick, who is more exercise and chap in the gym. So so that's what I'm going to do next week. So I'm very excited. So it was a big day yesterday. It was a Brenda day. Came in the house and the husband went, "Well," and I was like, "Yes," she's very pleased with me. And he could see, firsthand my excitement about Brenda. It was a beautiful thing. Or Bren, as we called her. But yeah, she was very pleased. As soon as I walked in, she went, "Oh, you're looking better." And I felt so good. I really felt like, "Oh, thanks. That's so nice." Yes, so that was good. What also has happened? Oh, so we've turned over to a new year, and so that means the Goodreads challenge that you set yourself has gone. So I set myself 60 books because I really don't care about how many books I read a year. If I read 6 or 60, it doesn't really matter. I am a reader. It is part of who I am. It's how I can think of myself and I consider myself, my place in this world. One of the things that identifies me, for me, is the fact that I am a reader and that I love books. So the number really is irrelevant for my good self, and also for if people talk to me about it. So some people say, "I'm a reader, I read, however many books a year," and it's like, that's great. You can be a reader that reads 2. If it's part of you that you so much identify as a reader, I really don't mind how many books you read. It's not important to me. So it's not important for myself that I actually hit a goal. But I quite like having somebody else tallying my number for me, i.e. Goodreads. And it's nice to flick through and see what you've read. Excuse me. So so I hit 60 months ago, and I was on 98 last week, so I had to read 2 books to make around 100, and I didn't. I only read 1 before the new year happened, so I finished the year on 99. So to kind of give myself something to I thought, well, I'm glad in some ways it was 99, that I didn't force myself to read so that I would read 100. However, it would have been quite nice to have that kind of round number, 100. So I set my Goodreads total for 101. So I thought if I can read, 100 and then 1 more, that will be great. However, if I don't read that many books, it really won't matter. But it was kind of like on the day. That's what I felt like doing. I have finished this week 3 books. So I finished 1 before... Yes, I can't remember what was my last book. I think it must have been an Agatha Christie. Yes, it was. I was listening to Hickory Dickory Dock. I've left the book downstairs. I was listening to Hickory Dickory Dock by Agatha Christie, which is an Hercule Poirot, and I really enjoyed it. It was narrated by Hugh Fraser. I've read it many times, but I enjoyed listening to it, and I actually really enjoyed the whole experience of it. So that was the book that I'd finished, and then I finished 3 books. 3 books? 4 books. I finished 4 books this year. So I've finished 5 in total in this last week. God, this is weird. I don't know how I've managed to do this. Anyway, one of them was one that I was in the middle of reading. And this was the book that I didn't manage to finish. Excuse me, I'm going to have to cough. I do beg your pardon. I'm a lot better, but as you can hear it, I'm still a little bit wheezy. This was the book I was about 60 pages towards the end on New Year's Eve, and I could have just sat there and gone through them, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to kind of force myself to read it. So actually on New Year's Day morning, I sat and finished this off. And this is Jane Steele by Lindsay Fay. It is highly inspired and follows the kind of follows the kind of format of Jane Eyre. This is a modern book, of course. Reader, I murdered him. Jane Steele is a serial killer. That's all you need to know, really. I enjoyed it, and I know there are quite a lot of people that love it. I didn't love it, and perhaps it's because I had high expectations, having known that other people really enjoyed it. But there's I've got some real picky things that I've got against it, and if somebody said to me, I really enjoyed it, I think, yeah, fair enough. There are just one or two little picky things that put me off, and I am a huge Jane Eyre fan, so that is probably partly why I didn't love it, because it was so referring to and discussing and closely aligning itself to such a beloved book. It was going to have to reach to the skies to be anything near it. I feel that Jane Steele changes. I think it's a book in two halves. I was really enjoying it, and then it sagged for me, and then I enjoyed it again. And the middle bit is the bit between, is the kind of the changeover. So I feel that there's two different types of Jane. There's Jane before Highgate House, and then there's Jane after at Highgate House. I feel like she alters, and I found that altering bit is a bit that I felt it lost it. Also, excuse me, I'm going to have to cough again. Excuse me, I do beg your pardon. Also, Mr. Thornfield, who is the Mr. Rochester character, I felt started off a lot stronger than he was. I felt he faded as a character, and the reason I feel that he faded as a character is because she got to the point where she needed to do a lot of plot. So at the back end of the book, there's lots of plot. The plot itself is great, and I thoroughly enjoy it. But I feel that she couldn't carry the character of Mr. Rochester and the relationship between Mr. Thornfield and Jane. I didn't feel that she could really carry that and deal with the plot at the same time. I feel that the plot was too heavy for her. She couldn't do both. Didn't stop it being an enjoyable read. It didn't stop me thinking that I would recommend it to people. But it wasn't as good as I want, and those are the criticisms I have. But they are very picky, and I completely understand it if somebody says, I thought it was great. I'd say, fair enough, yeah, completely. That's absolutely great. So that was that. So that was the first book of the year, although it was really last year's. The next audio book I listened to was called Death by Drowning by Agatha Christie, read by Joan Hickson. And this was only kind of a couple of hours long. I got it because the Agatha Christie's on Audible were reduced, and it was a short one that I wouldn't have used a credit for, but it was very cheap. And I realised when I started listening to it, it was short stories from Miss Marple, featuring Miss Marple, which I have read all of them, and they all come out of this one. So it was, I think, 4 short stories out of this, which is the 13 Problems, and it was The Herb of Death, The Affair at the Bungalow, The Thumb Mark of St. Peter, and Death by Drowning. So if you know the stories, it was those 4 stories, beautifully narrated by Joan Hickson, a joy to listen to. I'm not a huge fan of short stories, but I love the Miss Marple and the Hercule Poirot short stories by Agatha Natch. Talking about Agatha, I have got a giveaway which I haven't yet pulled for, and I will get back to you on that next week. So that was the second book. So that was Death by Drowning by Agatha Christie. My third book was, not that, but was, is it going to show you? The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. Let's go for that. Oh, that made me look very yellow. Look at this. Oh, I'm like sepia Louise. Ooh. Ooh. That's me with a yellow tone. I'm not sure. I'm great. Anyway, it's gone off. So that was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang, which is Hoang. I saw this recommended on Olive's channel, Abookolive, in her 10 best books of the year. And it's a romance, and it features a lot of Vietnamese culture, which I am not familiar with at all in any way, shape or form. It talks about Vietnamese pop culture, has lots of cultural references and food references, culinary references, and it is a adult romance. It is quite steamy. A little bit of sauce. I saw when she held it up, I saw it was blurred by Nalini Singh, and I thought, I bet that has a little bit of romance with a bit of action in, and indeed it did, and it was quite quick. So it was a very enjoyable romantic romp, I would say, and I would highly recommend it. It is contemporary. It's set in America. I can't think of the place, whereabouts in America. It's a modern day, and it features Silicon Valley. That's right, set in Silicon Valley. And it features, it is a kind of diverse read in the fact that it features a lot of Vietnamese culture, which of course I don't come from, so it feels different for me. It also, the heroine has Asperger's, which was interesting because quite often we use some men with autism, so having a heroine with Asperger's and a heroine in a romance with Asperger's was cool. I really enjoyed it. So I gather it's been very popular over BookTube over the last year, and I could completely understand why. I would highly recommend that. So that's The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang, is what I'm going to go for. And then the last book I read was my other Christmas book. So I got Jane Steele, and I got Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan Maguire. I'd asked for this because it's a very slim hardback, which very rarely is reduced in price, and so is a little bit pricey. So I didn't feel like I could justify buying it myself. Didn't know. I've never read any Seanan Maguire, although I have read Mira Grant, which I didn't realise that one of her pseudonyms is Mira Grant, and I have read Mira Grant books quite a few years ago, I think. So yes, so you will, I'm sure, know all about this. This is set in a school for the people that have come back from legendary, nonsense, logical, secret worlds. So it's the worlds that you fall through a doorway, or the back of the wardrobe, or a little door on top of the mantelpiece, and you get sucked into it as a child, and you spend years and years there, and you come back and you've been gone for 12 days. And you have trouble reintegrating into the modern day in many ways. So it is a school for those people, for those children. So I'm sure you've heard about it. And it is a slight murder mystery. I feel that the murder was to give the book structure, and also to explore how people react to things. I really enjoyed it. I felt it was quite a cool book, but I found it unbelievably sad, I have to say. It hurt from many different angles. I tell you what really caught me. It was the people that had been left behind, and whether or not it's because I've got Benedict and he's 10, and if he went through one of the doorways and came back, it was the fact that they want to go back. They see that as their home, not their home where their parents were. And the character that we are focused on, Nancy, her parents want her to be they want her to be the girl that she was before she went, and that it's their love, and like you can feel that, and you can feel the whole book seemed to be about longing to belong, longing to be somewhere else, longing to be accepted, longing and not fitting in. And I found it unbearably sad, I have to say. It was enjoyable to read, and it's very well written, and it's a sparse book, very short, as I say, novella rather than a novel. Very well crafted, but it almost hurt. It almost hurt to read it. I found it quite an affecting book in that way, which I wasn't expecting. So that was a glorious surprise. And anytime a book does that to me, I am thrilled. And I want to continue reading it. And the next book follows two people from this and is a prequel, or is another story from the kind of this universe. And so I want to read it for that. And it'll be interesting to see if it has the same feeling for me or it has a different feeling. But yeah, it was really powerful. It was a really good book. I read it very quickly. It's only 180 pages and, as I say, sparsely written, but very well done. Really well done. So yes, that's my Every Heart a Doorway. As you can see, I have done very well. Can you go there? Look at that. Look at that. How cool is that? It's like I'm a proper booktuber. First time that's ever happened. There we go. 3 out of the 4 books I've read. And of course I read the other book as well. Did so well. I haven't actually got a book in front of me that I'm going to read. I finished that last night. I am planning on reading on the old Kindle, which is a very old Paperwhite. This is my Paperwhite. Agnes Moore's Wild Night by Alicia Cole, which is again a novella, but Mel from Bookland Adventures. Mel, I've got your name wrong again. But she's brilliant. I will put her details in the description below. She spoke about it on Instagram, and I was like, I shall have a read of that, and it was very cheap on my Kindle. So there's that, and I'm not sure what other book I'm going to be reading at the moment. I'm very into a certain podcast called The Doorway Murder, which is by BBC Scotland, which I listen to on my phone, and that's really good. So I'm really into that. So I can recommend that if you're a podcast fan who likes true crime. It's called The Doorway Murder. And that's it. That's all I've got going on at the moment. All exciting times. So yes, I'm sure I shall pick something up in the next day or two and get sucked into it, and then I'll come back and tell you all about it. And there we are, BookTube. That's going to be it. I think I've probably whiffled on. I have whiffled on far too long today, so I do apologise for that. Whiffly, but I've had all this news. I've got books to talk to about. I've got Brenda, I've got Mick. An adventure for next week. I will be able to come back and update you with my adventures with Mick. Who knows? He might be somebody who's not up for adventures, not like Brenda. He might not get my heart like Brenda does. Anyway, let's not worry about that. There we go. I hope you have a marvellous week, and this has been lovely, BookTube. Let's do it again.